You walk into a room and feel it immediately. Eyes on you. Not hostile, not friendly, just staring. And then nothing. Complete silence. Like you triggered something in their minds that they cannot name. You are not imagining this. They are staring. And the reason they say nothing is because they lack the vocabulary for what they are witnessing. According to Carl Jung, they are not looking at you. They are looking into a mirror, and what they see reflected back terrifies them. Consider a psychological pattern Jung documented repeatedly in his clinical practice. Individuals would enter social spaces and report this exact phenomenon: the stares, the silence, the inexplicable tension. Jung discovered these were not random occurrences. These individuals had undergone what he called the individuation process. They had become authentic. And authenticity in an inauthentic world creates a disturbance that people can feel but cannot articulate. Let me show you exactly what they see when they stare at you. Because once you understand this mechanism, you will never feel confused by their silence again. Most people wear what Jung called the persona, a social mask constructed from expectations, conditioning, and survival mechanisms. This mask allows them to navigate society without friction. They present the version of themselves that gets approval, avoids conflict, and maintains comfortable illusions. The persona is not inherently bad. Jung understood it as necessary for social functioning, but problems arise when people become completely identified with their mask. When they forget, there is a real self beneath the performance. When the costume becomes the only identity they know, these individuals spend their entire lives managing impressions, calculating responses, performing emotions they do not feel, hiding thoughts that might disturb the carefully constructed image. They become so skilled at this performance that they lose contact with their authentic nature entirely. Then you walk into the room. When someone who has shed this mask enters their environment, something breaks. Jung observed this creates what we might call a system error in the collective unconscious. These individuals are encountering someone operating outside the agreed-upon script of social performance. The programmed responses fail. The usual reading mechanisms do not compute. Think of it like this. Imagine everyone in a room is wearing tinted glasses that make the world appear a certain color. They have forgotten they are even wearing glasses. This is simply how reality looks. Then someone walks in without the glasses. They can see clearly, and everyone else can sense this person is perceiving something different, something real. This creates profound cognitive dissonance. The stare is the brain attempting to process this anomaly. Their unconscious mind registers that you are not wearing a mask. You are not performing. You are not calculating your responses for maximum approval. You are simply being authentic. And in a world built on performance, authenticity looks like a glitch in the matrix. But here is what makes this truly unsettling for them. Your presence forces them to become aware, even if just briefly, that they are wearing a mask, that they have been performing, that there is a difference between who they are and who they pretend to be. This awareness is deeply uncomfortable. It threatens the entire structure they have built to avoid confronting themselves. So they stare. And the silence? That is the ego recognizing it has no defense against someone who is not playing the game it was designed to win. Their usual tactics of charm, manipulation, or social maneuvering have no effect on you. You are not seeking their approval. You are not trying to impress them. You are not afraid of their judgment. This makes you incomprehensible to them. And what the human mind cannot comprehend, it observes in stunned silence. But there is something deeper happening in these moments of silent observation. Something Jung spent decades studying and documenting in his work with patients across different cultures and social contexts. Jung devoted considerable research to what he termed shadow projection. The shadow contains everything about ourselves that we have denied, repressed, or refused to acknowledge. The anger we were taught was unacceptable. the selfishness we were shamed for expressing, the darkness we learned to hide, the power we were told was dangerous. We unconsciously project onto others the qualities we have denied in ourselves, the parts of our psyche we cannot accept, the potential we have buried, the freedom we have surrendered. And when someone has done the work to integrate their shadow, when they have made peace with their darkness and claimed their power, they become a screen onto which others project everything they have disowned. Consider a composite case that illustrates this dynamic perfectly. Imagine a woman who begins her individuation journey after years of people-pleasing and self-abandonment. She stops saying yes when she means no. She sets boundaries without apologizing. She speaks uncomfortable truths that others avoid. She chooses solitude over toxic company. She stops shrinking herself to make others comfortable. When she enters spaces filled with people still trapped in unconscious patterns, something remarkable happens. They stare. And if you could hear their internal dialogue, it would sound like envy mixed with resentment, mixed with longing. They see in her what they have killed in themselves: the courage to disappoint people, the strength to stand alone, the clarity to see through manipulation, the freedom to prioritize their own peace. Their stare is not judgment of her. It is grief for their own unlived life. Jung called this the mirror of the unlived life. When you have done the work to become individuated, you reflect back to others everything they could have been but chose not to become. Empaths aren't broken. They're alchemists in progress. The Alchemist's Path gives you drills, Jung-based boundaries, and 3 exclusive chapter videos to turn overwhelm into clarity. By Surreal Mind, 236-page downloadable ebook, in stock. Begin now at thesurrealmind.com. You are walking evidence that another way exists, that you can say no and survive, that you can set boundaries and still be worthy of love, that you can choose yourself without being selfish. And for people who have spent decades justifying their choices to stay small, safe, and acceptable, your presence is destabilizing. You prove that all their justifications were just fear disguised as wisdom, that all their reasons for staying trapped were just stories they told themselves to avoid the terrifying freedom of authenticity. Every time they look at you, they are confronted with a question they have spent their whole lives avoiding. What would my life look like if I had the courage to be myself? This question is so threatening to their entire identity structure that their mind cannot form words around it. This is why they cannot speak. Language would require them to acknowledge what they are feeling, and acknowledgement would require them to confront the years they have spent building a prison and calling it a home. The silence protects them from this confrontation, but it cannot protect them from the feeling itself. So they stare, unable to look away from the mirror you have become, unable to articulate the storm of emotions your presence has awakened. The silence is not empty. It is full of everything they cannot allow themselves to say. Now here is where Jung's observations become truly fascinating, where the psychological dynamics reach a level that most people never understand, even those who experience it daily. People do not just project their shadow onto you, they project archetypal energies. Jung identified universal patterns that exist in the collective unconscious, patterns that transcend individual psychology and tap into something ancient and shared across all humanity. The healer, the mystic, the judge, the sage, the warrior, the prophet, the mother, the king. When someone has integrated these archetypal energies through individuation, others can sense it, not consciously perhaps, but the unconscious mind recognizes archetypal presence the way a compass recognizes magnetic north. Let me give you a narrative illustration that demonstrates this principle. Imagine someone has spent years doing shadow work. They have faced their darkness without flinching. They have integrated their pain instead of projecting it. They have transmuted their trauma into wisdom. They have descended into their personal underworld and returned with treasures. When this person enters a space, they carry what Jung called a numinous quality, a sense of presence that feels ancient and powerful. It is not something they try to project. It is simply what happens when you have done deep work with archetypal energies. You begin to embody them rather than being unconsciously possessed by them. Others cannot articulate what they are detecting, but their nervous system registers it immediately. This person is operating from a depth most people never access. They are channeling archetypal energy. And the human psyche recognizes archetypal energy the same way the body recognizes a predator, with instinctive alertness. Let me be clear about something crucial. The stare is not about your physical appearance. It is not about your social status. It is not about your achievements or your failures. It is about the energy you embody. Jung observed that individuated persons emit a frequency that disrupts unconscious patterns. You are broadcasting on a different wavelength than the collective operates on. People stare because some part of them knows you see through their performance. You recognize their mask. You perceive the shadow they are hiding. You sense the potential they have buried. And this recognition, even unspoken, threatens the entire structure they have built to avoid self-knowledge. When you carry archetypal presence, you become a walking reminder of everything they are not accessing in themselves. If you embody the healer archetype, they feel their own wounds more acutely in your presence. If you embody the sage, they feel their own confusion and lack of wisdom. If you embody the warrior, they feel their own cowardice and capitulation. You are not doing anything to them. You are simply being yourself. But your authentic presence acts like a tuning fork that reveals how out of tune they have become. The stare is their unconscious mind trying to understand why being near you makes them feel so uncomfortable in their own skin. But we still have not addressed why the silence feels so heavy. Why does it carry an almost oppressive quality? Why does it sometimes feel like you are being crushed by the weight of their unspoken observation? Jung discovered something profound about this dynamic during his own psychological crisis and subsequent recovery. The individuated person triggers what he called the numinous experience in others. Numinous means inspiring awe mixed with fear. It is the feeling of encountering something vast and incomprehensible, something that makes you aware of your own smallness, something that touches the sacred and the terrifying simultaneously. When someone has done deep psychological work, they develop what Jung termed psychological authority, not the authority of dominance or control, not the authority that comes from position or power, the authority of someone who has descended into their own underworld and returned transformed, the authority that comes from having faced what most people spend their lives running from. This authority is felt, not demonstrated. It exists in your presence, not your words. It emanates from your being, not your behavior. And this is precisely what makes it so powerful and so threatening. Consider how this manifests in social dynamics. The individuated person does not need to assert themselves. They do not need to prove anything. They do not need to dominate conversations or control outcomes. They simply exist with complete self-possession, with quiet confidence that comes from self-knowledge rather than self-importance. And this self-possession creates a silence in others because their ego recognizes it is in the presence of something it cannot manipulate, impress, or deceive. The ego operates through elaborate strategies to maintain its position. It uses charm to seduce. It uses aggression to intimidate. It uses victimhood to manipulate. It uses intellectualization to avoid feeling. It uses performance to control perception. These strategies have been refined over years, perhaps decades. They work on almost everyone. But when the ego encounters someone who is not running any ego programs, it experiences a kind of system shutdown. All its tactics become irrelevant. Charm does not work on someone who is not seeking your approval. Aggression does not work on someone who is not afraid of conflict. Victimhood does not work on someone who will not take responsibility for your emotions. Intellectualization does not work on someone who trusts their intuition more than your logic. The silence is the ego realizing it has no power here. And for people who have built their entire identity around ego strategies, this realization is terrifying. They have spent their whole lives learning how to manage and manipulate others through these tactics. They have become masters of the social game. Then you show up and the game does not work anymore. You are not playing. You are not even on the board. You are operating from a completely different paradigm, and they have no map for this territory. This is why the stare often feels uncomfortable. You are being assessed by a part of them that knows you represent everything their ego has been constructed to avoid. Authenticity, depth, truth, consciousness, sovereignty, the very qualities they have sacrificed in order to belong, to be safe, to be accepted. And now we arrive at what Jung considered one of the most dangerous aspects of being the conscious person in an unconscious environment. This is where the silence can transform into something more sinister if you do not understand the dynamics at play. The phenomenon Jung observed repeatedly in his clinical work was what we might call tall poppy syndrome. In cultures where mediocrity is enforced through social pressure, anyone who rises above the collective baseline becomes a target, not necessarily through overt attack, often through subtle undermining, gossip disguised as concern, exclusion framed as natural consequences, psychological manipulation presented as helpful feedback. Jung documented this pattern extensively in his work on group psychology and collective consciousness. The individuated person often experiences a draining effect in group settings, not because they lack energy, not because they are introverted or sensitive, but because they become the unconscious repository for everyone else's projected shadow material. They absorb the collective tension that no one else will acknowledge. They carry the weight of unspoken resentments that the group refuses to address. They become what Jung called the psychological scapegoat, the one onto whom the group projects all of its denied dysfunction so it can maintain the illusion that everything is fine. Let me walk you through how this unfolds in a way that shows the progression clearly. Someone has done their inner work. They have faced their shadows. They have integrated their trauma. They have become authentic. They enter a family system, workplace, or social group that operates on unconscious agreements. These agreements might include things like, we do not talk about real problems, we maintain pleasant facades at all times, we enable dysfunction to keep the peace, we sacrifice authenticity for belonging, we punish anyone who disrupts the comfortable lies we tell ourselves. The individuated person cannot participate in these agreements, not because they are trying to be difficult, not because they think they are better than everyone else, but because they have done the work to become conscious, and consciousness cannot unsee what it has seen. They cannot pretend the dysfunction is not there. They cannot perform emotions they do not feel. They cannot agree to lies just to maintain false harmony. Their presence alone violates the collective contract. They do not have to say anything. They do not have to call anyone out. They do not have to start conflict. Their energy disrupts the established patterns simply by existing authentically, and the group unconsciously organizes to neutralize this disruption. This is where the stares transform into something more sinister. What began as confused observation becomes hostile surveillance. The group begins monitoring this person for any behavior that can be used to justify exclusion or attack. Any boundary they set is labeled as aggression. Any truth they speak is called negativity. Any refusal to participate in dysfunction is framed as judgment or superiority. Jung called this the crucifixion of the individuated self by the collective unconscious. It is a psychological crucifixion. The group cannot tolerate the mirror you represent, so they attempt to destroy the mirror rather than look into it. You become dangerous not because of what you do, but because of what you represent. Possibility, change, growth, consciousness, evolution. And for systems built on maintaining unconscious patterns, these qualities are existential threats. If you can become conscious, then their unconsciousness is a choice. If you can set boundaries, then their lack of boundaries is not inevitable. If you can heal, then their refusal to heal is not justified. Your existence proves that transformation is possible. And for people invested in their victim narratives, in their justifications for staying stuck, in their reasons why they cannot change, your existence is an unbearable accusation. The weight you feel when people stare in silence is not your imagination. You are feeling the collective shadow being projected onto you. You are experiencing what Jung termed psychological vampirism, the unconscious draining of energy that happens when you become the container for everyone else's denied material. They cannot hold their own shadow, so they dump it onto you. They cannot face their own potential, so they resent yours. They cannot tolerate their own inauthenticity, so they attack your authenticity. And all of this happens beneath the surface of polite interaction, beneath the silence, beneath the stares. This brings us to the crucial question. If being seen this way carries such burden, what do you do with it? How do you navigate a world that both cannot look away from you and cannot accept what it sees? Jung spent his entire career answering this question, and his answer might surprise you. It is not what most modern self-help would tell you. It is not about protecting your energy, or cutting everyone off, or withdrawing from the world. You do not run from it. You do not diminish yourself to make others comfortable. You do not apologize for your consciousness. You learn to hold it with wisdom. You develop what Jung called the transcendent function. The transcendent function is the ability to hold tension between opposites without collapsing into either extreme. It is the capacity to be fully present in the world while remaining rooted in your authentic self. You can be in the world, but not of it. You can engage with unconscious people without being pulled into unconscious patterns. You can allow projection without absorbing it as truth. This is not detachment. Detachment is a defense mechanism. It is a way of protecting yourself by disconnecting. The transcendent function is different. It is the ability to remain connected while maintaining sovereignty, to be compassionate without being consumed, to be present without being possessed. Consider a case profile that demonstrates this capacity. Imagine someone has completed significant individuation work. They have integrated their shadow. They have claimed their power. They have developed psychological authority. They walk into family gatherings where they once felt suffocated by dysfunction. Now they observe the dynamics with compassion rather than reactivity. They see the projections being aimed at them and recognize them as projections rather than truth. They feel the attempts to pull them back into old roles and refuse the invitation without needing to explain or defend. They notice the stares and understand them as the group's unconscious recognition of consciousness in their midst. This person is not detached from their family. They are fully present, but they are no longer enmeshed. They can see the pain beneath the dysfunction without taking responsibility for fixing it. They can love people while refusing to participate in patterns that harm them. They can honor their own boundaries while remaining compassionate toward others' limitations. When someone stares in judgment, they recognize it as projection and do not internalize it. When someone attacks their boundaries, they see the fear beneath the aggression and do not take it personally. When the group falls silent in their presence, they understand they are witnessing the collective shadow, having nowhere to hide, and they do not shrink to relieve the discomfort. Jung taught that the individuated person becomes what he called a culture carrier, someone who holds consciousness for the collective until the collective is ready to become conscious itself. This is not a burden to resent. It is a role to inhabit with dignity. It is a sacred function in the evolution of human consciousness. The stares are not punishment. They are recognition, unconscious recognition perhaps, resentful recognition maybe, but recognition nonetheless. These people are seeing in you what Jung believed was the next evolution of human consciousness, the capacity to be authentic in a world designed to enforce conformity, the courage to be sovereign in a culture addicted to codependence. The strength to stand alone when standing together requires abandoning yourself. Every time someone stares at you in silence, they are having an encounter with their own unlived potential. They are feeling the discomfort of their own inauthenticity reflected back to them. And while they may never thank you for this mirror, you are serving a function that Jung considered sacred, essential, revolutionary. You are proving that another way is possible. The silence eventually breaks, not because they have found words, but because the tension becomes unbearable. And when it breaks, you will often see one of two responses. Jung observed these patterns across decades of clinical practice and personal relationships. Either they will attack what they cannot understand, attempting to destroy the mirror rather than look into it. They will find reasons to exclude you. They will create narratives that make you the problem. They will organize others against you. They will do whatever it takes to eliminate the source of their discomfort, rather than face what your presence is revealing about themselves. Or they will be drawn to you with questions they barely know how to ask, seeking the consciousness they sense but cannot name. They will approach tentatively, testing whether you are safe. They will share vulnerabilities they have hidden from everyone else. They will ask for guidance on their own journey. They will recognize in you what they long to become. Jung observed both responses throughout his clinical work and his personal life. Some people defend their unconsciousness with violence. Others surrender to the call of their own becoming. Your role is not to force the latter. Your role is not to convince anyone or save anyone or prove anything to anyone. Your role is to remain conscious regardless of which response you encounter. This is the ultimate teaching Jung offered about being the person everyone stares at, but no one understands. You have broken the chain of unconsciousness. You have refused to participate in collective delusion. You have chosen the difficult path of individuation over the comfortable path of conformity. And yes, this choice means you will often stand alone. It means you will be misunderstood. It means you will carry a weight that others cannot see and would not believe if you described it. It means you will sometimes question whether consciousness is worth the cost of belonging. But it also means you are living an authentic life in a world drowning in pretense. You are contributing to the evolution of consciousness itself. You are part of what Jung called the conscious minority, the individuals who carry the burden and the gift of awareness. You are proving that freedom is real and transformation is possible. Jung believed that every person who completes individuation makes it slightly easier for the next person to begin their journey. You are not just transforming yourself. You are changing the collective field. You are altering the frequency of human consciousness. You are creating a blueprint that others can follow even if they never know your name. So when they stare at you in silence, remember what Jung knew. They are not seeing you. They are seeing everything they could become if they found the courage to face themselves. They are having a brief encounter with their own soul, projected onto your presence. They are feeling the call of their own becoming, even if they will spend the rest of their lives running from it. Let them stare. Let them be silent. Let them feel the discomfort of their own potential awakening. This is not your burden to fix. This is their invitation to transformation. Whether they accept that invitation is their choice. You cannot make that choice for them. You can only make it for yourself. Your only responsibility is to remain conscious, to continue your individuation, to embody the authenticity that frightens and fascinates them in equal measure, to hold your ground when they try to pull you back into unconscious patterns, to maintain your sovereignty when they attempt to make you responsible for their comfort. You are not too much for this world. You are exactly what consciousness evolution requires. And the fact that they cannot look away, even when they have nothing to say, proves that some part of them knows this truth. Some part of them recognizes what you represent. Some part of them longs for the freedom you embody. You are the proof that breaking free is possible. And that proof is the most dangerous, powerful, necessary gift you can offer to a world that desperately needs it, even when it does not know how to receive it, even when it attacks you for offering it, even when it stares in hostile silence rather than grateful acknowledgement. If you recognize yourself in this description, if you have felt the weight of these silent stares, then you are part of what Jung called the conscious minority. The individuals who carry the burden and the gift of awareness. You are the culture carriers, and the world needs you to remain exactly who you are. Let this be your commitment to consciousness, your declaration that you will not shrink to make others comfortable, your acceptance of the role Jung believed was essential for human evolution. Thank you for watching, and remember, the silence they offer is not rejection, it is recognition. They see what you have become, and some part of them knows they are witnessing the future of human consciousness taking form in the present moment. They are watching evolution happen in real time, and they cannot find words for something that profound. In The Alchemist's Path, perception training for empaths, you'll turn overwhelm into wisdom with practical drills, Jung-inspired boundaries, and step-by-step perception training. This guide includes 3 exclusive chapter videos to deepen each lesson. Written by Surreal Mind, 236 pages, beautifully designed 8.5 by 11 downloadable ebook, in stock now. Start your training today. Feel deeply while thinking clearly. Get The Alchemist's Path at thesurrealmind.com.